Hola amigos, this is Level 12, and today I'm going to be discussing, is there a place for me and other adults in the Promised Neverland fandom? Also, I know a lot of people shorten the Promised Neverland to TPN, however, my brain, for some reason, keeps on thinking Neverland are two separate words, so it's TPNL for me. Get over it. But as I've been doing the TikTok and doing cosplays and recently got on the Promised Neverland side of TikTok, I've realized everyone that cosplays from the Promised Neverland is pretty much a minor. And I don't mean like, when I say the word minor, I always think of like a 10-year-old. I mean, they're like 15. And so, like, technically we could have gone to high school together, but I still feel very weird and feel like I'm encroaching on their space, but we'll get into it. So I thought I would analyze the two biggest things that the Promised Neverland has to offer. The characters and the plot, and then how the fandom is made up. So, all of the characters, or all of the main characters, are kids between the ages of 6 and 16. And the main cast go through the ages of 11 to 16-ish. I looked up where Emma ends her age in the series, and she ends at 15, but I'm pretty sure at least one of the three main, Ray, Norman, and Emma, one of them probably ends up at 16. But you catch my drift. This is the main age range of the characters. And so it would be natural, right, for the fandom to identify and relate with these characters. I don't relate with Emma, Norman, and Ray on a super deep personal level. I appreciate their scheming and their brain power is that of someone of my age and, someone who's smarter, but, I don't relate to them. They're like children. They're preteens. At the oldest, they are teens. That is a stage of life I'm not in. And the adults of the series are either antagonists, such as Isabella, Sister Crona, and Peter Rattery, or die shortly after being introduced or mentioned. Think James Minerva, or Mr. Minerva, think Lucas, think Hugo. And thus, this puts the focus back on the children for the audience to perhaps relate to. And the demons, while there are adult demons, like I would consider Sanju and Mujika adult demons, they have an othering effect because they don't look human. They're humanoid, but they're not human, and so we don't relate to them as much. It's a lot easier for someone to relate to another thing if it looks like you. And the demons, even though humanoid, look different enough that our sympathy is more with the children. And I've seen Mujika and Sanju cosplayers and other demon cosplayers, so I'm sure there is some empathy there, but it's a lot different. You're more supposed to relate to the children, especially because of how infrequent Sanju and Mujika actually appear in the grand scheme of things. And then there's the plot, which one of my first points of contention with so many children being in the fandom, and I was like, isn't this a little graphic for children? And then I realized, no, it's not. Look at my other Promised Neverland video where I talked about how there needed to be more death because more death is more realistic based off the premise that was set up at the start of the series. Connie is really our biggest on-screen death because it's so unannounced. And these are not the official arcs. There's 11 or 10 arcs in total, I'm pretty sure, within the Promised Neverland. I've condensed it down into these 6. So the first big plot point is the escape from Gracefield, and other than the initial shock of Connie's death, nothing else gory or anything of the like happens. It's mostly mind games. And Sister Crona does die, and that's slightly graphic, and the Norman is believed to die, and that's not graphic. That's just heartbreaking. Nothing a child couldn't handle, and I say child, I mean like a 13-year-old. And then there's the Find Minerva arc, which takes up most of Season 2. A little bit of the manga in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much. There's some chase scenes, and as Netflix would call it, instances of terror, as they sometimes have as their trigger warnings at the top of movies. But again, nothing graphic. Nothing you wouldn't expect from a normal shonen. Then there's the Goldie Pond arc, which is one of my favorite arcs. It is the most battle-heavy arc, but relies a lot on strategy of the children versus gore. There's some gory elements, such as, when the children get stabbed or attacked, but it's nothing that I haven't seen before. And I'm saying this as someone who regularly watches horror movies and has a horror movie collection. It's not a lot. Like, it's not what it could be. And then there's the Finding Norman and the Seven Walls arc. The Seven Walls arc is my second favorite arc because it's just so trippy. And again, it's nothing a child couldn't handle. It's fine. Norman and his battle, I didn't care for that side of thing. I loved learning about Ayashe, the wolf girl. Loved learning about her. Everything else I didn't care for. There's the Imperial Capital battle, which served to be some sort of exposition on the demon hierarchy of things and the history of the demon world and all of that jazz. Not much that I care for, and it wasn't too gory. And again, it's demon versus demon kind of thing, so you're and we already know the ousted demon man, his plan is to eventually eat Norman, so we're not really on his side of things, because we know what his plan is to do, and we already know Norman's going to double cross him. The stakes are high and intense in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, out of the illusion, we know it doesn't matter, so we don't really care. Then there's the human arc, where there's nothing but humans. And I go over the entire plot in this, bird's eye view to be there's nothing really here that would deter a child. Other than the length of it, it's 181 chapters if you just stick with the main manga, and then there's, epilogues and stuff, and there's the second story. The only extra bit that I read was the part about Ray, and Ray coming to terms with and being really, grief-stricken about his realization. I thought that was nice, but again, it's nothing a child couldn't handle. And I go over this plot because I'm well, is there anything in the plot that would deter/attract children? And there's nothing that would deter most children. I know a lot of people stopped watching once they saw Connie's death. However, that's probably the most graphic part of it. I'm thinking of season 2, and even in season 2, it wasn't that graphic. There was some weird shenanigans with hot air balloons that I don't quite understand why they did that. But in the manga, the most graphic part is the Goldie Pond arc. And in the grand scheme of things, you can just read a synopsis of it and be fine with it. You'll miss out on some of the empathetic and heartwarming moments, and you won't get attached to certain characters like Lucas or Yugo, but you can, for all intents and purposes, skip it and read a synopsis if you're really against watching some children get stabbed and then survived, and maybe watching Lewis die when she doesn't even die. That bothered me. But again, there's nothing that would deter children and more so attract them. I say children, when I say children, I mean 13 to 15-year-olds. And so now we have to look at the fandom and what it's made up of. There's a lot of minors, 13 to 17-year-olds on TikTok doing cosplay. Also minors on Instagram, and their main focus seems to be babying the characters, which, is cute. They're 11 when we start, so you kind of want to baby them. And there's not a lot of adults. The adult side of things is pretty quiet, except when everything first started coming out, and then they saw the second season and then dropped it because they're this is trash. However, it's shonen it's weird shonen, but it's technically shonen. I'm pretty sure it appeared in Shonen Jump, so I guess it's shonen. And so it's meant to attract boys, technically. That's what shonen's for. It's meant to attract boys between the ages of 8 to 13, 15, and then it goes into seinen, which is for 16 to 20 something year old boys. But in any event, it's supposed to attract children. And I'm is there a place for me in the fandom? Because I love The Promised Neverland. It is one of my favorite manga and anime, second season, one of my first season favorite animes. You know what I'm saying? And it's I go on TikTok, and I want to cosplay the characters, and the two characters I can cosplay that I have are Ray and Norman. If I put some white stuff in my Ray wig, I technically could be Yugo, but I have no interest in being Yugo because I just don't vibe with him. And it's am I allowed to be in this fandom space? Because I don't want to impede on children's media like the Bronies did. The Bronies themselves aren't bad. However, it's a children's series, and I don't want to take that away from children because some things need to be children-oriented. Kids need to enjoy kid things and not have weird adults be in their spaces. And I don't want to impede on their space. You know what I'm saying? as much as I want to enjoy The Promised Neverland, I don't want to take it away from a 12 or 13-year-old that also wants to enjoy it without adults being there. Because there's some magic of being in a fandom that adults aren't into. Like, I feel like Undertale was really hyped up by a bunch of preteens and teenagers, and then, like, obviously they grew into adults. But it's like, is there, like, should I be here? And I feel very weird because I want to enjoy the Promised Neverland stuff and read fanfics and, like, make fan art. Well, I'm not making the fan art, but look at fan art and do cosplays of it, because that's currently how I express my interest in a fandom, is through cosplay. But it's a little weird being one of the few people over 18 in the fandom. I have friends that like The Promised Neverland, just, like, in general, and I have 1 or 2 cosplay friends that are my age or a year or so older, but it's mostly children. And I mean, I'm just 18. I'm not like a 20-something-year-old, but I still feel weird, interacting with, like, 15-year-old content, being like, yes, your Emma cosplay is great. And I'm like, is that weird to hear from an 18-year-old? I don't know. And that's my hangout with the Promised Neverland fandom. I just don't want to impede on a child's space, basically. And it's not, I don't think the manga is geared toward, like, 12-year-olds, but it's definitely geared towards a younger audience, with the main characters being children, most of the adults either being bad or dying, or both. I don't know. I will still continue to be in the fandom until either, like, I just lose interest, or a younger fan explicitly tells me this is an 18 and under only space, can you please leave? And I'll respectfully agree and leave that space. I don't know what space that would be, other than, like, at a convention or something, but I will respectfully leave, because children should be able to enjoy their interest without adults looming over them, because I can tell you, some of the interest I have had adults enter the space, and I'm just like, I feel uncomfortable with you here, but I'm too scared to tell you to leave. So, with all of that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tell me how you interact with the Promised Neverland fandom. Are you an adult and you enjoy the media and the fandom? Are you a minor and you feel weird with the adults there, or do you not care? Or, like, what's the deal here? Someone please talk with me about my experience, because I'm just trying to live my life and enjoy anime. Anyways, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more random fandom things. Ciao, chicos.